Look, the music biopic is basically Hollywood's most reliable cash cow right now. But the upcoming 2026 film, simply titled Michael, well, it isn't just another retrospective, it is literally the ultimate studio gamble. Welcome to this explainer. As an entertainment industry critic, when you look at the sheer scale, the astronomical budget, and the massive legacy on the line here, it's absolutely impossible to ignore the stakes. We aren't just talking about looking back at a famous musician. We are looking at a high-stakes play to completely redefine the crown jewel of pop culture intellectual property. So, you really have to ask yourself, why is a legacy artist trending so heavily right now? And not just for his past music, but for a massive upcoming cinematic event? Well, to understand this, we've got to look at today's studio landscape. Hollywood has found incredible box office success recently by mining past musical icons. Just think of the billion-dollar run of Bohemian Rhapsody or the massive cultural resurgence sparked by Elvis. But Michael Jackson? He represents the final boss of this trend. I mean, it's incredibly rare for an artist whose peak was literally decades ago to capture the cultural zeitgeist so completely today. The machinery behind this production is leveraging absolutely every asset available to make this a monumental moment in modern cinema. They're treating it not just as a film, but as a global event designed to dominate the box office across all demographics. Okay, here is how we're breaking down this cinematic event. 1. The ultimate biopic gamble. 2. Unmatched cultural assets. 3. The controversy factor. 4. Inside the production strategy. And 5. Restoring or fracturing legacy. All right, let's kick things off with section 1. The ultimate biopic gamble. From an industry standpoint, casting is absolutely make or break for any biopic. And here, the filmmakers have made a highly calculated, totally double-edged choice. They cast MJ's own nephew, Joffrey Jackson. Early reports are highlighting an insane, almost uncanny resemblance in both his voice and his dance moves. But let's be real, this casting is a massive strategic swing. On one hand, having the family and the estate deeply involved grants the production unparalleled access. We're talking authentic music rights, original choreography, and invaluable archival materials that other studios could literally only dream of securing. The authenticity is undeniable. On the other hand, though, critics and industry insiders are immediately going to question the film's objectivity. When the estate controls the narrative and the star is family, balancing truth with tribute becomes a massive high-wire act. And that dynamic is driving intense anticipation and skepticism alike. Moving on to section 2, unmatched cultural assets. The sheer scale of the intellectual property the filmmakers are leveraging here is staggering. It's an explosive, multi-decade resume that holds immense catalog valuation. You start with the child star in Gary, Indiana, rising to global fame with the Jackson 5. Then, things just explode with the Thriller era, cementing his status with the best-selling album of all time and literally turning music videos into expensive, highly profitable cinematic masterpieces. And finally, you have the cultural phenomenon of Motown 25, the exact moment history changed forever when he introduced the moonwalk to a live television audience of millions. From an industry perspective, these distinct eras represent an absolute goldmine of narrative content and merchandising opportunities. The global penetration of the Thriller IP alone pretty much guarantees massive interest in international markets, which is absolutely crucial for modern box office success. But his influence didn't just stop in the past. It directly fuels modern entertainment today. This translates into a true 4-quadrant marketing dream for the studio. He broke racial barriers on MTV and fundamentally redefined the economics and sheer scale of what live touring could be. His stylistic DNA inspired today's megastars. Artists like Beyoncé, Chris Brown, and The Weeknd owe significant parts of their visual and sonic identities to his groundwork. And crucially for today's market, his music and style absolutely dominate TikTok trends and dance reels. So for a movie studio trying to bridge the gap between older, nostalgic audiences who bought the original records and Gen Z ticket buyers interacting with his music online, this modern industry footprint is a massive built-in advantage. The target audience isn't just people who grew up with him. It's honestly anyone engaging with pop culture today. Now for section 3, the controversy factor. So, right alongside those massive cultural assets, the production faces some unprecedented narrative hurdles. The movie is forced to tackle a deeply divided dual narrative. On one side, you have the unparalleled musical genius, right? The global icon whose art is universally beloved. But on the other side, you have immense media scrutiny, tabloid sensationalism, and high-profile legal battles. Balancing the story of a musical genius with one of the most complicated and controversial personal lives in entertainment history is a monumental task for the screenwriter and director. How exactly does a studio market a protagonist with such a heavily divided public perception?
It requires threading a needle, where the film must acknowledge the darkness to maintain credibility, while still delivering those spectacular musical sequences that audiences are actually buying tickets to see.
To truly understand the modern climate this film is releasing into, we have to acknowledge the recent past. The 2019 documentary, Leaving Neverland, reignited intense debates worldwide. It became a massive media event that forced audiences into strongly opposing camps of defense and criticism. Regardless of where you as an individual might stand on the details, from a pure business and marketing perspective, this represents a major PR liability. The crisis PR teams at the studio backing this film are undoubtedly preparing for the inevitable think pieces, the boycotts, and the social media backlash that will accompany this film's rollout. Navigating this environment objectively is paramount if the film is to succeed globally. Because look, ignoring the cultural conversation entirely could be seen as an endorsement, but leaning too heavily into it could totally alienate the core fanbase. Which brings us to Section 4, Inside the Production Strategy. The studio's core marketing strategy really relies on a specific set of promises. It's a calculated blueprint to attract both skeptics and superfans. When they promise never-before-seen details, they are signaling to the skeptics and critics that they're offering the unfiltered truth, not just some sanitized, estate-approved puff piece. When they commit to a deep dive into his personal life, they are assuring audiences they won't shy away from the behind-the-scenes struggles and the intense isolation that accompanied his fame. They're basically offering a new, different perspective on the burdens of his reality to justify reopening his story. It's a highly strategic effort to position the film as the definitive, final word on his legacy, compelling even those who might be totally on the fence to buy a ticket just to see how these elements are handled on screen. Finally, Section 5, Restoring or Fracturing Legacy. This idea perfectly encapsulates the core industry motivation. A whole new generation is about to discover him again. Because he remains one of the most streamed artists globally, this movie basically guarantees his debated story will be introduced to an entirely new demographic. But the downstream revenue impact here, that's what really drives the studio system. A successful, widely seen theatrical film triggers massive spikes in streaming revenue, physical back catalog sales, publishing royalties, and global merchandising. The studio isn't just selling a 2-hour movie ticket, they are actively revitalizing a billion-dollar legacy brand. The potential cultural and financial impact is just staggering. They're actively reshaping the narrative for millions of new viewers while supercharging an entire music industry ecosystem. So, as an entertainment critic, the ultimate question we have to leave you with is this. When the credits finally roll, will this massive cinematic event heal his public perception or permanently fracture it? Hollywood is rolling the dice on a legacy that changed the industry forever, and billions of dollars, as well as an icon's permanent historical record, are on the line. The whole world is going to be watching to see how the chips fall and how the box office responds to the most complex figure in pop culture history. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep analyzing the narrative, and I'll catch you next time.